I've spent most of my life living in a world half muted. Sounds arrive as faint echoes or muffled whispers. When I was 10, my doctor told me I was slowly losing my hearing in both ears. Over the years, I developed coping habits, lip reading, nodding along, pretending I heard the punchline. It worked until I turned 28 and decided I deserved better. Last month, I finally invested in a pair of custom-made hearing aids. The sticker shock nearly made me gasp out loud. $8,000. $8,000 for a chance to hear clear birdsong, the crisp crack of laughter, the gentle "I love you" from my partner. I scraped the funds together without asking family for help. This was my fight, my victory. I come from a tight-knit clan. We gather for birthdays, anniversaries, and every major holiday. Our matriarch, Nana June, hosts us at her cozy bungalow by the lake. It's where traditions thrive. Homemade apple pie, karaoke nights, photo albums spread across the kitchen table. It's also where tensions lurk beneath the smiles. My cousin, Rowan, has always been family royalty. At 26, he's tall, confident, and impossibly charming. He has an effortless charisma that turns eyes his way. When he laughs, the room brightens. When he speaks, people lean in. I, on the other hand, have always hovered on the sidelines. I'm quiet, cautious, and I sometimes stumble over words when I strain to hear. To others, I'm sweet and sensitive. To him, I was an easy target. Rowan loves practical jokes. As a teenager, he rigged my shampoo bottle to squirt blue dye. In college, he replaced my alarm with a recording of ducks quacking. I never retaliated. I preferred peace, even if it meant swallowing embarrassment. This year's party was late June, my sister's engagement celebration. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in orange and rose. We lounged on the back deck, sipping lemonade and swapping stories. Children splashed in the pool. My aunt snapped photos. My uncle told a corny joke that no one laughed at, but everyone politely applauded. Rowan approached me carrying 2 iced teas. "Here you go, Jules," he said with a grin. I smiled, accepted the drink, and turned to my sister. He lingered close, like a shadow, waiting for the perfect moment. I mentioned my new hearing aids. The silicone shells fit snugly behind my ears. They glinted in the sun. I told him how they transformed my world. He raised an eyebrow. "Cool," he said. "I'd love to see how they work." I warned him. "Please don't get too close. Water and electronics don't mix." My tone sounded casual, but inside I felt serious. These devices were fragile and precious. Rowan just shrugged and wandered off. 20 minutes later, I felt a jolt behind me. Before I could brace myself, strong arms scooped me up. "Ready for a swim?" He laughed, hoisting me over his shoulder like a log. I screamed, "No, stop!" But my voice came out strangled. My feet kicked air. Panic rushed through my chest. Then he plunged me into the deep end. Shocked cold water surged over my head. My world went dark. The hearing aids, my lifeline, sizzled and drowned. I resurfaced, spluttering, goggles askew, glasses, hearing aids. Ruined. I climbed out, water dripping from my hair, my dress plastered to my legs. Rowan stood at the edge, arms folded, amusement in his eyes. The sun glinted on the pool's ripples. Everyone froze. "Jules?" My sister's voice was tight. "Are you okay?" I shook the water from my face. My chest heaved. My ears buzzed with distant echoes. I stumbled toward a towel. My mind raced faster than I could catch breath. "Your hearing aids," I croaked. "They're wrecked." Rowan shrugged again. "Didn't know you had them. Didn't think it mattered." A hush fell. My cousins exchanged uneasy glances. Nana June hurried over, dabbing my cheeks with a towel. My aunt fussed over me like I was a porcelain doll. Rowan hopped out of the pool, his grin gone. "Sorry," he mumbled. "I was just kidding." I looked him in the eye. "This isn't funny. They cost $8,000. His face paled. "8,000? His voice cracked. He shook his head. "I can't. I don't have that kind of money." As reality sank in, my jaw tightened. I wanted to scream that it wasn't his money to give. It was mine. I'd earned it. I swore I wouldn't beg for repairs or replacements, but I also refused to swallow this loss alone. That night, while everyone else toasted my sister's engagement, I lay awake in Nana's spare room. I stared at the ceiling fan spinning in the dark. My ears whispered emptiness. I pictured my untouched savings, then the repair bill. My heart clenched. I made a decision. I would not let Rowan off the hook. I would hold him responsible. I would seek justice, even if it meant the family learned a painful lesson about boundaries and respect. The next morning, I packed my things. I slipped into my sneakers and walked to my car. My sister peeked from the porch. "You okay?" she asked softly. I touched my ears, feeling only smooth skin. I drew in a shaky breath. "I'll be fine," I said, "but something has to change." As I drove away, the sun rose behind me. The lake shimmered in the distance. My world felt fragile and raw. But for the first time, I also felt steady resolve. I would fight, and I would win. I drove home in silence, the morning sun beating through the windshield. My ears ached in the emptiness. With every passing mile, I replayed Rowan's shrug, his half-hearted sorry, his refusal to own up. It felt like betrayal all over again. When I parked in my driveway, I sat behind the wheel and sucked in a long, steady breath. I needed clarity. I needed a plan. I opened my laptop, found a local audiology clinic, and emailed them. "Can you assess water damage on my hearing aids? I need a quote for repair or replacement." Then I Googled small claims court procedures. I wasn't sure I'd actually file, but I needed to know my options. 2 days later, I trudged back to the clinic. The technician examined my hearing aids under bright lights. He shook his head. "These are fried," he said gently. "I can order replacements, but it'll cost you $8,000 minimum, and it'll take weeks." My heart sank. Weeks without hearing aids? The quiet felt like a weight pressing on my chest. I thanked him, paid a deposit, and left with a terse nod. My ears felt raw. My mind busied itself with numbers. 8,000, Rowan's salary, possible repayment plans. I jotted down ideas in a notebook, installment agreements, wage garnishment, mediation. I felt strangely alive, my pulse quickening with each new possibility. That evening, I invited Rowan out for coffee at our favorite cafe, the one with mismatched chairs and strong lattes. I wanted him unguarded. I wanted him sincere. I arrived early, ordered a black coffee, and waited. When he walked in, his shoulders hunched. He looked smaller without his usual swagger. I waved him over. He sat, scrubbed a hand through his hair, and sighed. "Hey," I slid my notebook across the table. "I have numbers," I said softly. $8,000. That's the cost of replacing my hearing aids." He winced. "I know. I've been looking for work. I can't afford that." "I don't want a payment plan over 10 years, I said. "I want what's fair. You broke them. You fixed them." He stared at the table. "Fair doesn't put food on my table or diapers on the baby." I pressed on. "I understand your situation, but I warned you. You ignored me. Now I'm warning you again. I'll file a claim in small claims court if you don't pay." Rowan looked up, his eyes rimmed red. "Court?" He shook his head. "Jules, I can't. You know how much stress I'm under." "Stress isn't an excuse for destroying someone's property," I said. My voice felt thick. "I waited. I gave you every chance. Now it's my turn." He ran a hand over his face. I need time. Maybe I can cover half now and the rest later. I glanced at my watch. The cafe's lights flickered on as dusk fell outside. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to forgive him. But I also needed certainty. "I'll give you 2 weeks," I said. "After that, I file." He nodded slowly. 2 weeks. We left in silence. I felt a mix of triumph and guilt. Triumph because I stood up for myself. Guilt because I was pressing my cousin, my flesh and blood, into a corner, court or no court. Back home, I drafted a formal letter outlining the agreement. $8,000, due in full by July 1st, or small claims filing. I printed 2 copies, signed both, and slid one across the table at dinner. My parents stared at it like it was an alien artifact. My sister shut her eyes, pinched the bridge of her nose. "That's harsh," she said quietly. I met her gaze. "It's necessary." My mother's voice cracked. "Can't you give him more time? He's got a baby on the way." I lowered my head. "He had his fun, Mother. He made his choice." That night I lay in bed, the letter discarded on my nightstand. My ears felt endless. I thought about Rowan's drooped shoulders and the quiver in his voice. I wondered if I was being too cold. But a memory burned in my mind, the pool's surface shimmering as he laughed at my fear. I drifted into uneasy sleep. 2 weeks passed. I heard nothing from Rowan. No call, no text, no check in the mail. I replayed our coffee meeting over and over. Had I been too rigid? Had I set the tone for this standoff? My stomach twisted with uncertainty. On the morning of July 2nd, I stood in line at the courthouse. I clutched my folder. Copy of the agreement, receipts from the audiology clinic, photos of my ruined hearing aids. When my number flashed on the screen, I stepped forward with steady hands. In the small claims courtroom, a bailiff called the case. Jules Harper versus Rowan Sinclair. I faced the judge, introduced myself, and presented my evidence. Rowan sat across from me, his shoulders hunched under his blazer. My heart pounded, each beat echoing in my ears. The judge asked for Rowan's response. He admitted he hadn't paid. He said he was sorry. He promised to pay. But the judge reminded him that promises don't replace hearing aids. He set a judgment for full reimbursement, plus court fees. Rowan's head slumped. I gathered my papers, nodded respectfully to the judge, and left. Outside, the summer air felt heavy on my skin. My relief was muted by the sight of Rowan's despondent figure in the hallway. That evening, I told my partner what happened. She wrapped me in her arms. "You did the right thing, Jules," she whispered. "You stood up for yourself." Yet I couldn't shake the weight. Our justice had come at a cost. Rowan's dropped classes, extra shifts at his call center, the strain on his family. I told her, "I don't want him to suffer. I just want my life back." She kissed the top of my head. "You have it back now." As I lay in bed that night, I stared at the ceiling. The quiet pressed in on me, but this time it felt different. It felt earned. I drifted into sleep, unsure of what the next chapter held, but certain I would face it head on. I hardly recognized my cousin after the court verdict. Rowan's easy smile vanished. In its place was a cold distance. He stopped answering my calls. He refused to meet my eyes at family gatherings. Even Nana June's living room felt tense, like a battlefield at ceasefire. The first sign of retaliation came in whispers. I overheard my Aunt Muriel telling a friend, "Jules always had a chip on her shoulder. Now she's suing her own cousin." My stomach knotted. My own family questioning my motives felt like salt on an open wound. At work, I started getting strange texts. "Did you hear what Jules did?" one read. "How could she ruin Rowan's life?" Another, "She's breaking up a marriage before it even started." I stared at my phone. These messages weren't from strangers. They were co-workers I barely spoke to. Rumors spread faster than wildfire. I confronted the one who texted most. She claimed she only forwarded a harmless joke, but her eyes flickered with guilt. I realized Rowan had started a campaign to paint me as the villain. He was good at twisting stories. Always had been. He turned me from victim to aggressor in the space of a pool splash. Then came the messages from Rowan himself, dripping with resentment. "You ruined my life, Jules. Do you hear that? That's the sound of my dreams drowning." I felt a pang of regret, but I steeled myself. He chose this path. A week later, Nana June hosted a midsummer barbecue. I braced for more cold shoulders. The air crackled with unspoken accusations. My Aunt Julie hit me first. "You know how hard Rowan's trying," she said softly. "He's barely keeping the lights on." Her voice trembled. "We thought you were better than this." I laid a hand on her arm. "I know he's struggling, but he gambled with my livelihood." I swallowed. I warned him. He had choices. My voice cracked. I looked around at their pained faces and suddenly felt alone in the crowd. My partner squeezed my hand under the table. She mouthed, "Stay strong." Her calm gave me a second wind. I lifted my chin. Later that night, I found Rowan in the yard, staring at the pool where it all began. He didn't flinch when I approached. He didn't offer a greeting. "You still angry?" I asked. My voice came out softer than I intended. He shrugged. "I have every right to be." His tone was flat, hollow. "You cost me tuition, cost me sleep, cost me peace." I circled him, careful not to back him against the fence. "I never asked you to fail. I asked you to pay what you owe." He held my gaze. "I resent you for it." A silence grew, heavy and oppressive. Then he spoke again, quieter. "I'll never forgive you." That declaration made something crack inside me. Forgiveness. I had offered it. Yet he refused. He used it as a weapon, too. The next morning, I arrived at my apartment to find my mailbox stuffed with letters. Overdraft notices, late rent warnings. Someone had changed the billing address on my hearing aid payments to his ex-girlfriend's apartment. The clinic tried to charge them. The resulting failed payments triggered fees. My bank froze my account. Panic clawed at me. I dialed the clinic. They confirmed what I feared. The address on file was wrong. Someone had submitted a fraudulent change. I apologized and demanded they revert it. They warned me it might take weeks. Weeks, without hearing aids. And now, a frozen bank account. My chest tightened. Rowan's reach had gone farther than I imagined. I sent him a text. "Did you change my billing info?" No reply. I sent another. "This has to stop." Still nothing. I spent the next day frantically calling banks, clinics, and credit agencies. I filed a fraud report. I traced the paperwork with a clear conscience. I never authorized any changes. Someone was trying to break me. By nightfall, my apartment felt like a prison. I paced between the couch and the window. I thought about giving up, letting it go, walking away from the hearing aids I couldn't use, from the family who now shunned me, from Rowan's vendetta. Then I heard a faint hum as my phone buzzed. It was a voicemail from the clinic. "We've corrected the billing address. Your hearing aids are repaired and ready for pickup. Your balance is clear." Relief washed over me so suddenly, I almost wept. My ears buzzed with the promise of sound again. I stood in the silent room, my fingers brushing where the devices would sit. I realized something fundamental. I couldn't let Rowan dictate my life. His betrayal had stung, but my resilience would outlast his spite. The next morning, I drove to the clinic. Water had dried in the crevices of my past, but new devices waited. I slipped them on behind my ears. A soft click, then a rush of sound, my own heartbeat. The hum of the air conditioner, distant traffic. It was overwhelming in the best way. I closed my eyes and let the world in. My world. With Rowan's sabotage undone, my vision cleared. I felt ready to face whatever he threw next. The storm wasn't over, but I wouldn't be battered by it. The fracture in my family widened like a crack in ice. What began as whispers turned into open hostility. Invitations vanished. Holiday plans skipped me. Even Nana June's annual harvest dinner rolled on without word of my name. A single empty chair at the head of the table echoed louder than any rebuke. I felt the cold shoulder most acutely from my own mother, Diane. When we spoke on the phone, her voice trembled between loyalty to her grandson and sympathy for her daughter. "Rowan's hurting, Jules," she'd say. "Can't you see that?" I understood her love for both of us, yet her pleas felt like knives twisting in my chest. I hung up before tears welled in my eyes. One Sunday afternoon, I received an ominous package at my door. No return address. Inside was my hearing aid case, shattered, the molded shell cracked open, and a note scrawled in childish print. "Next time, I won't stop at pool water." My blood ran cold. I knew Rowan's anger, but this crossed a line. He was escalating. He was willing to terrorize me to win. I called the police, filed a report, and installed a security camera above my front door. I also changed my locks. At night, I left all the lights on, afraid of shadows. Yet through the fear, a stubborn flame of defiance burned. I refused to cower. Work became my refuge. I buried myself in projects, drafting reports and leading meetings, feeling my confidence swell as the world filled with sound again. Each laugh, each tap of a keyboard, each ring of my phone reminded me why I fought. Rowan's threats had one aim: silence me. But I wouldn't let him steal my voice, literally or figuratively. Then came Rowan's most desperate move. A week later, an email landed in my inbox, a link to a private family chat. Messages poured in, screenshots of a doctored video showing me deliberately sabotaging Rowan's childhood toys, pushing him into the pool while feigning innocence. The caption read, "Justice served." In the footage, I looked cruel and unhinged. Dozens of relatives chimed in, demanding I apologize, questioning my character, cheering Rowan's so-called vindication. My heart pounded. I downloaded the video, pressed play on my phone speaker, and heard only silence. The frames flickered, and I recognized the angle. Someone had spliced my pool fall with an earlier prank of Rowan's. They'd shaved frames, added shadows, twisted context. It was malicious, it was deliberate, and it hurt more than the court battles. Took a deep breath, recalled my late grandmother's words. Truth is like water. It seeps through the smallest crack. I decided to flood the crack. I recorded a video statement on my living room sofa, straight to camera. My sincere apology for any past pranks, the real story of that day by Nana's pool, my calm warnings to Rowan, his refusal to listen, the ruined hearing aids, and the timeline proving the footage was tampered with. I posted it to the same thread, captioned simply, "Here's the truth," in my own words. The reaction surprised me. Some messages turned from derision to apology. My cousins admitted they'd been fed lies. Aunts and uncles confessed they hadn't known it was manipulated. My mother emailed, "Thank you for speaking your truth. I'm proud of you." The tide began to turn, yet despite the small victories, the pain lingered. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. I knew things with Rowan would never be the same, but I also knew that standing firm, speaking up in the face of intimidation, was worth the cost. I had reclaimed my voice, my agency, my dignity. That night, I sat by the window, listening to crickets and the distant hum of traffic. The world felt vast and alive. I touched the empty space behind my ear where the hearing aid would rest. My new devices were scheduled for delivery tomorrow. I felt a surge of hope. Rowan's darkest gambit had failed. My family's faith in me had cracked the last barrier. I realized that true strength isn't the absence of fear, but the resolve to act despite it. The storm still raged around us, but I stood at its center, unbroken, ready for whatever came next. In the days after I posted my truth, life began to shift. My inbox no longer brimmed with attacks, but with hesitations. My cousin Mara sent a shy apology. "I'm sorry I doubted you. I was angry and scared." My Uncle Thomas admitted he'd shared the fake video without checking. Even Aunt Muriel wrote, "I wish I'd listened to you first." Their words felt like tentative handshakes across a chasm we'd carved. I realized that rebuilding trust would take more than corrections online. It required face-to-face moments. So I organized a small gathering at my apartment, a neutral, safe space. I invited only those who reached out with genuine regret. We ordered pizza and spread blankets on the floor. The hum of my repaired hearing aids filled the room with warmth. At first, the air was awkward, eyes darted, words stumbled. But I set a simple tone: openness. "I know some of you still have questions," I began. "I'm here to answer them." I spoke slowly, making sure every ear caught each word. I shared how it felt to be silenced, how scary threats can be. I thanked them for showing up and apologized for any pain my lawsuit caused. My voice quivered, but stayed steady. Mara wiped away tears. "We never meant to abandon you," she said. "We were caught between family and fairness." Other relatives nodded. In that moment, I saw the complex dance of loyalty and love. They hadn't vilified me out of spite. They'd been torn. We went around the circle, each person speaking honestly. I listened without judgment. Their confessions ranged from shame to relief. By the end, we had laughter, small, careful, but real, the kind of laughter that builds bridges. After the gathering, I felt exhausted, but lighter. A heavy weight had lifted. Yet I knew this was only the first step. Trust, once broken, rebuilds slowly. I set boundaries to protect myself. No pranks ever again, no pool jokes, and clear respect for my space and belongings. I told Rowan I'd be open to a conversation when, and only when, he could approach with genuine remorse. I also sought help for myself. I resumed therapy sessions I'd skipped in the chaos. In those sessions, I learned to balance empathy with self-respect. My therapist encouraged me to journal my progress. I wrote daily entries, victories, fears, plans. On good days, I noted the crisp clarity of birdsong. On bad days, the ache of strained familial ties. Professionally, I leaned into new challenges. I applied to lead a cross-departmental project at work. Speaking up in meetings felt easier now that my hearing aids worked flawlessly. My confidence grew with each successful presentation. Coworkers praised my insights. The silent jokes faded. I had reclaimed my place. At home, I fostered small rituals. Every evening, my partner and I cooked together. I set the table, crisp plates clinking under my hands. We talked about our dreams, a vacation to the mountains, a quiet anniversary dinner. Those moments grounded me. They reminded me of the world beyond our family drama. I also reached out to a local support group for adults with hearing loss. Sharing stories with people who understood my struggles brought solidarity. Their laughter, their shared tips, everything felt nourishing. I realized that community wasn't limited to blood and bone. Through it all, Rowan remained distant. He had dropped out of college and taken extra shifts to meet garnishment orders. I heard from a mutual friend that he was exhausted and ashamed. I felt compassion, but also clarity. Reconciliation could wait until he repaired himself, emotionally and financially. One afternoon, I received a letter from him. No plea, no blame, just a line painted on clean paper. "If you ever want to talk, I'll be here." I held it for a long time. My heart pulsed with old pain and new hope. I folded it neatly and placed it in my journal. I wasn't ready to reply, but I wasn't closing the door. Life was neither perfect nor broken. It was a tapestry woven from resilience, boundaries, and hope. I'd taken back my voice. I'd reclaimed my trust in family. And I'd learned that strength often comes from setting limits as much as from breaking barriers. Tomorrow, I would pick up my brand new hearing aids. I would step into the world, fully present, fully heard. My past still echoed, but it no longer defined me. I had a path forward, one I would walk at my own pace, with pride. I woke before dawn, my ears already picking up the gentle hum of city life. A soft breeze drifted through the window, carrying distant car horns and the faint chatter of early birds. Today was the day I picked up my new hearing aids. I dressed quickly, my heart fluttering with anticipation. At the clinic, the technician greeted me with a warm smile. He carefully fitted the sleek devices behind my ears and adjusted the volume. "Ready?" he asked. I nodded. A soft click, then a cascade of sound washed over me. The rustle of paper on his desk, the distant whir of an air conditioner, even the gentle rumble of footsteps outside. I blinked back tears. This moment felt like rebirth. Driving home, I tuned into the radio. I hadn't listened for months. Two voices, hosts debating local news, filled the car. I laughed at a joke I barely caught. I sang along to a song, voice rough but joyful. For the first time in years, I felt fully alive. That evening, I called Rowan. My hands trembled as the phone rang. He answered on the second ring. His voice was cautious. "Hey, Jules." "Hey," I replied. Silence stretched between us. My mind raced with possible apologies and guarded statements. Finally, I spoke. "I got my hearing aids today. They're perfect." A pause. Then, "That's great." His tone was quiet, sincere. I took a breath. "Rowan, I've had time to think. About us, about the pool, about everything." I kept my tone even. "I don't expect us to return to how things were, but I want us to try. I'm willing to meet halfway." His voice softened. "I'd like that." We agreed to meet at a cafe, neutral ground. 2 days later, I waited at a small table. When Rowan walked in, he looked tired but hopeful. I stood and smiled. He offered a tentative grin in return. We ordered tea and sat facing each other. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "For the video, the threats, the fraud." I was angry and ashamed, and I lashed out. His eyes glistened. "I was wrong." "I appreciate that," I replied. "I forgive you, but we need boundaries. No more pranks, no more lies." I paused. "And respect for my space and my hearing aids." He nodded. "Agreed." He reached across the table and gently tapped the arm of my chair. "Thank you for giving me a chance." We spent the next hour talking through the rubble of our history. We shared memories, building sandcastles as kids, roasting marshmallows at Nana's bonfire, late-night card games. We laughed at Rowan's clumsy dares and at how stubborn I used to be. Each story peeled back another layer of pain and regret. By the time we left, the sun had dipped low. The air was soft with dusk. I felt lighter, not fully healed, but moving toward it. We hugged, a brief, careful embrace that held years of hurt and hope. That weekend, Nana June hosted a small family dinner at her lake house. I arrived early and placed fresh flowers on the table. When Rowan pulled up, he gave me a shy wave. Inside, the tension that had gripped me loosened. We took our seats side by side. Over roast chicken and buttery potatoes, stories flew across the table. Laughter came easily. My mother raised her glass to me. "To Jules for standing strong," she said. My father nodded, his eyes bright. Uncle Thomas offered a toast to second chances. I felt warmth flood my chest. Later, Rowan and I took a walk along the lake's edge. The water was still, reflecting a sky streaked with pink. He slipped his hand into mine. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything." I squeezed his hand. "We both have work to do, but I'm glad we're doing it together." That night, I lay in bed, my new hearing aids gently buzzing with the soft clicks of the world. I thought about how far I'd come, from the silent bubble I lived in, to the fierce court battles, to the gaslit threats, and now to this fragile peace. I realized that resilience isn't just about standing your ground, it's about opening doors when the time is right. In the weeks that followed, our family continued to heal. We set new traditions, a monthly game night at my apartment, a yearly camping trip, small rituals that honored respect and kindness. Rowan often joined my support group meetings as an ally, helping others understand the impact of hearing loss. He even organized a fundraiser for adult audiology services, using his charisma for good. As for me, I learned to balance empathy with strength. I discovered that asking for respect isn't selfish, it's essential. I found community beyond blood, friends who listened and stood by me. I recognized that forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's choosing peace over bitterness. One quiet morning, I stood on my balcony, coffee in hand, and listened to the world greet the day. Birds chirped, cars hummed, and a neighbor's radio played an upbeat tune. I smiled. My journey had been stormy, but it led me here, fully present, fully heard, fully alive, and in that moment, I knew my story wasn't just mine. It was a testament to anyone who's ever felt silenced by water, by words, by fear. To them, I'd say, stand firm, speak your truth, and never let anyone drown out your voice. Because when you reclaim it, you reclaim your life. Story 2. My brother used my house to scam strangers out of $12,000. My parents sided with him. Now he's begging me for help after getting arrested. For the past 5 years, I, a 29-year-old male, have been working hard in the scorching Arizona sun to install solar panels. The solar sector has been thriving, particularly in Phoenix, where every new neighborhood wants to go green for tax breaks. I started as a basic installer earning $18 per hour, but I worked my way up to crew chief by showing up on time and not making mistakes like half of the guys in this field. Now I earn $75,000 per year, overseeing teams of installers on commercial and residential projects. I've also been supporting my family for 5 years. My best friend Dorian from high school has been following this for years. He's an auto technician who runs his own shop, built like a tank with no patience for nonsense. His evaluation on my situation: "Dude, you're like a financial Stockholm Syndrome victim. These people are bleeding you dry, and you keep saying thank you afterward." Dorian is the type of buddy who will tell you precisely what you need to hear, even if you do not want to hear it. He's been successful because he treats people properly and refuses to take garbage from anyone. My cat, Zeppo, was the only one who seemed to realize how messed up things were. This large orange tabby has been with me for 3 years and judges people more accurately than most humans. This is how the whole mess began. When Dad was laid off in 2019, they were 3 months behind on their mortgage, with foreclosure proceedings already underway. The bank was not playing games. They had 60 days to make up the $4,200 in outstanding payments, plus penalties, or they were out. I'd recently been promoted to crew chief, earning $65,000 a year, which felt like hitting the lotto. After years of scraping by, instead of lending them money that they would never pay back, I made what I felt was a wise decision. I purchased their home outright for $180,000, depleted my entire savings account, took out a tiny personal loan, and emptied my 401k early with penalties. Put the deed completely in my name for tax purposes and told them they could repay me progressively over time. The house itself is a fine 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch from the 1990s. It's in a safe community with decent schools and little crime. Property values have been gradually rising, so it should be worth roughly $220,000. Currently, the mortgage they couldn't pay was only $850 per month, which should have been feasible with 2 incomes. However, Marlon and Celeste have always struggled with money. Over the next 4 years, they never returned a single penny to me, not one. I kept detailed records of every expense: property taxes $3,200 per year, homeowners insurance $1,800 per year, and every major repair. New roof in 2023 after hail damage $12,000 vac replacement. When the old unit died during a heat wave $8,500. Plumbing issues from tree roots $2,400. Garage door replacement was $600. Exterior paint job $3,800. All out of my own pocket while they pretended to be doing me a favor by living there. The financial hardship was severe. I was practically supporting 3 persons with my pay while also saving for my own future. I had to postpone purchasing my own home, couldn't afford to upgrade my truck, and my savings account remained near nil for years. Meanwhile, they were living mortgage-free in a house that would have cost $1,200 a month to rent elsewhere. Celeste and Marlon, my parents are both 52 years old and seem to live in a world of their own. Marlon claims his back is too injured to work after being laid off from a warehouse job, but he still spends 12 hours per day restoring his 1985 Camaro in my garage. Celeste works about 15 hours a week at a beauty boutique named Sheer Perfection. And yes, it is as tacky as it sounds. She spends more time chatting about customers than cutting hair, and she returns home grumbling about her demanding job. My 24-year-old brother Blaze is professionally worthless. This youngster has been to Arizona State University, dropped out after 1 semester. Phoenix Community College dropped out twice. Universal Technical Institute graduated, but never used his automotive certification and perhaps 30 different jobs. He's worked at GameStop, Best Buy, 3 different restaurants, a contact center, and many temporary agencies. Never lasted more than 6 months anywhere. He's currently building his brand as a freelance graphic designer, which means he earns around $200 per month producing bad logos for his stoner mates while pretending to be the next Steve Jobs. Blaze is the type who will eat your food, use your Netflix login, borrow your tools, and then gossip about you to anyone who would listen. The worst aspect was how they treated me in front of everyone. Blaze would invite guests over to my house, act as if he ruled the place, and make jokes about me being the moneybags. Marlon would complain about his son's micromanagement of house renovations. Celeste would tell her sisters that I was constantly commenting on their design choices in my home. She'd spend my money on throw pillows and wall paintings, then act as if I was being unreasonable and questioning the spending. Last year, she wanted to remodel the kitchen with the $15,000 renovation money. I didn't have and was upset when I declined. However, the breaking point occurred on New Year's Eve 2023, and it changed everything. December 31st, 2023. I'm standing at the front door of my house, arms full of food and party goods purchased for their New Year's celebration. The temperature is about 20 degrees, which is unusual for Arizona, but we were experiencing a cold spell. Mom opens the door as if I were a door-to-door salesman attempting to sell her solar panels. Her expression gets utterly blank when she sees me, as if she is staring at a stranger. You must have the wrong house. I'm standing there puzzled as heck. Mom, it's me. What are you talking about? She stares at me with dead eyes. I don't know who you are. Then she starts to close the door. The door. I'm holding hundreds of dollars worth of their party stuff, and she's practically shutting me out, as if I'm some random person who showed up to the wrong address. Are you serious? I bought all the food and drinks for tonight. We don't need your charity, she shouts, slamming the door in my face. I waited in the cold for 10 minutes, listening to them laugh and music playing inside. I could smell the BBQ in the backyard. They were frying steaks. My phone vibrates. Text from Blay. Don't take it personal, bro. Mom said you weren't invited this year. Something about needing boundaries and positive energy only. Maybe find some friends your own age. That's when I heard Marlon's voice through the window, loud and clear. Maybe now he'll learn that throwing money around doesn't make you a family. Kid thinks he owns us just because he pays some bills. Then Blaze's voice became clearer. Honestly, it's pathetic. He's 29 years old and still trying to buy our love. Maybe getting locked out will teach him some self-respect. I heard Celeste giggle and agree. He's been way too involved in our business. The words struck me like a freight train. I literally owned them. I owned the house where they were sitting and making jokes about me. I owned the roof over their heads, the walls around them, and the ground they stood on. I had been paying for their energy, water, property taxes, and insurance. They were celebrating their independence from me by utilizing the resources I provided. Standing in the cold, holding groceries for folks who had just disowned me, I experienced a moment of complete clarity. They were not grateful for the 4 years of free housing. They were upset with me because of that. They would rather be homeless than recognize what I had done for them. I was going to drive home and spend New Year's alone feeling sorry for myself when I realized Dorian had invited me to his family's party. I called him from the driveway, holding grocery bags like an idiot. They locked me out. Jesus Christ, Cassian. Get over here right now. Dorian's family lives in a quaint neighborhood about 20 minutes from my home. The type of neighborhood where residents converse to their neighbors and children play in the streets. When I arrived in with bags of food and champagne, his mother, Carol, immediately went into full Italian mama mode. Cassian, what are you doing? Bringing food. We have plenty. Dorian told me what happened. Those people are completely insane. Carol has been like a second mother to me since high school. She's this tiny Italian woman who manages to feed an army every time folks visit her house. Usually smells like garlic and fresh bread, and she has a way of making everyone feel welcome. The exact reverse of the reaction I just received from my own family. Dorian appeared with a drink for me, already opened. So let me understand this correctly. You bought food for their party, showed up at your own house, and they pretended not to know you. Pretty much. Dorian began chuckling, but not in a malicious way. Rather, he couldn't believe how ludicrous the scenario had become. Dude, this is like a really messed up episode of Punk'd. Except the joke's been going on for 4 years, and nobody told you. His father, Tony, a former construction worker, shook his head as he seasoned Steak's son. In my day, if someone bought your house to save you from foreclosure, you'd be kissing their feet, not locking them out on New Year's. Tony built buildings for 30 years until his knees gave up. He recognizes the value of property, the cost of maintenance, and the responsibility that comes with ownership. Dorian's sister, Maria, a paralegal who handles real estate transactions, was captivated by the legal component. Wait, so you're on the deed. You pay all the expenses, but they have no idea you actually own it. They think I'm just helping with payments to keep it in the family. Maria's eyes glowed with professional curiosity. Oh my God, Cassian. You could evict them tomorrow if you wanted to. They're basically squatters with delusions of ownership. She began teaching legal terms like adverse possession, tenant rights, and eviction procedures. As someone who works with real estate documentation on a regular basis, she realized how legally screwed my family was. They had no documentation, no leasing agreement, and no ownership rights at all. Dorian almost spit out his drink. Please tell me you're considering it. I am. The contrast was stunning. I was sitting in a warm house with people who truly cared about me, while my biological family was celebrating my absence in a home I owned. As midnight approached, Dorian raised his glass, the same champagne I had purchased for my family's gathering, to Cassian, who's about to learn the difference between family and people who happen to share his DNA. When the ball dropped and everyone started rejoicing, Dorian grabbed me away. "Dude, you know what you need to do, right?" "What's that?" "They want to play the 'This is our house' game, show them the deed, and watch their world collapse." Something clicked in my brain right then. In Casino, Sam Rothstein finds he was duped by trustworthy individuals. It was time to remind them who had all the cards. January 1st, 2024. I'm sitting in my apartment filled with coffee and wrath, researching tenant rights and eviction procedures on my laptop. My apartment is nothing fancy. A one-bedroom unit that I've been renting for $900 per month, while covering all of the expenditures for a house I can't live in. Zeppo was perched on my desk, watching me research legal matters with apparent acceptance for the first time in months. This cat had been assessing my family situation for years, and he suddenly appeared to feel that I was finally ready to take action. "What do you think, Zeppo? Time to teach them a lesson." Zeppo stretched, knocked my pen from the desk, and gave me a slow blink. In cat language, that translates to, "It's about damn time, you idiot." Dorian came over about midday with breakfast sandwiches from our favorite deli. "So, did you sleep on it like a rational adult, or are we going full nuclear, like I suggested? Full nuclear. These people need to learn who actually owns what." I'd spent the morning researching Arizona's landlord-tenant legislation. It turns out that when you own property and people live there without a contract, they are referred to as tenants at will, and they can be removed with 30 days' notice for any reason or no reason at all. No lease equals no protection. Then I discovered Anastasia via internet reviews and recommendations from other landlords. This woman has a reputation for being extremely brutal in eviction situations. Her success rate is over 98%, and she's received testimonials from landlords who've been dealing with horrible renters for years. During our consultation, she smirked like a predator as I explained the circumstances. Her workplace was all dark wood and law texts designed to intimidate. Anastasia was just about 5 feet 4 inches tall, yet she exuded a presence that made you understand why renters were scared of her. "So you own the house. They've been living there for 4 years without paying rent, and they have no idea you're the owner." "That's correct," she smiled. "This will be fun. How quickly do you want them out?" Dorian leaned forward as quickly as legally could. "These people locked him out on New Year's Eve." Anastasia took notes and asked tough questions regarding the documentation, which I had plenty of while I detailed the entire situation. The neighbor complaints Blaze's social media posts, the frequent financial demands, and the complete lack of gratitude. I've been doing this for 15 years and have never encountered a case this clear-cut. You have all of the documents. They have no legal basis, and their actions have been horrible. We are going to destroy them. 2 days later, I had my eviction papers ready, a notice to quit and demand for possession of premises in large, strong letters that would make anyone's stomach drop. The main terms were simple, yet devastating. Current occupants Celeste Morrison, Marlon Morrison, and Blaze Morrison must leave within 30 days or face formal eviction and sheriff-assisted removal. Alternatively, they might stay as tenants, paying $1,000 each month, with the first month due within 10 days. Anastasia recommended the rent option to make me appear reasonable in court. We both knew they couldn't afford $1,000 a month, and they'd been unable to pay their first $850 mortgage, so offering the option would make me appear nice to a judge while knowing they'd surely fail. The rent option serves multiple purposes, Anastasia noted. It makes you appear fair and reasonable. If they accept it but don't pay, you can get them out even faster. If they decline, you'll look like the nice man who attempted to work with them. When I returned home with the papers, Zeppo took one glance at the legal documents, sat up straight, and slowly blinked at me as if to say, "Finally, you're not a pushover." Dorian grinned as he read the eviction notice. "This is beautiful. On January 3rd, I traveled to my residence with the papers in a process server that Anastasia had organized. Dorian insisted on attending the show. I wouldn't miss it for anything. This is better than any film." Marlon answered the door in his bathrobe, looking hungover and puzzled, and his expression changed from annoyed to bemused when he spotted me with some official-looking guy in a suit. "Cassian, what are you doing here? And who is this guy?" The process server moved forward with expert efficiency. "Richard Morrison. You're being served with legal notice regarding this property." He handed Marlon the paperwork and a receipt to sign. "Services completed. Good luck." Dorian was standing behind me, trying not to laugh as Marlon's face turned totally white after reading the first few paragraphs. The color drained from his face as he realized these weren't phony documents or a prank. "What the hell is this? Cassian, what's happening?" "Read it carefully, Marlon." Celeste hurried to the door, seized the papers from Marlon's quivering hands, and read them aloud. "This can't be real. We own this home." Blaze arrived behind them, displaying his customary aggressiveness rather than attempting to comprehend the issue. "This is ridiculous, Cassian. You can't just conjure up false legal documents. Check the county records." "Celeste, my name has been on the deed for 4 years. You've been staying in my house without paying rent while treating me like garbage." That's when Blaze completely lost it. Just as I had predicted. "You are such a lying piece of expletive. There is no way you can own this house. You are only trying to scare us because you are upset about New Year's." "Blaze, the county's records are public. You may look them up online right now using your phone." "Screw it. This is our home. We are not going anywhere. You want us gone? So come and make us leave." Dorian stepped forward. Entire 6 feet, 2 inches. "Kid, threatening the actual property owner isn't the smartest legal strategy. Instead of taking the warning seriously or attempting to grasp their legal predicament, they chose to dispute it. Blaze convinced Marlon and Celeste that I was lying, that the documents were forgeries, and that they could hire a lawyer to prosecute me for attempting to take their home. The delusion was incredible to witness. The family drama erupted within hours. My phone began to fill up with calls from family who had heard Celeste's severely altered version of events. Most people took her side without asking for information or attempting to understand the actual legal issue. Aunt Carol called, weeping about how I was abandoning family members on the streets. Cousin Jenny exchanged a slew of heated emails about family loyalty and blood being thicker than water. Uncle Jim sent a lengthy voicemail expressing his disappointment at me and how this was not how he expected me to handle family. Celeste said that I was attempting to steal their house using forged legal documents, that I was envious of their secure home life, and that I was suffering from a mental breakdown that was causing me to be vindictive. But then Uncle Sam called, Marlon's older brother. Samuel is 58 years old and has worked as a master plumber for 35 years. This guy started Morrison Plumbing from scratch, working out of his garage until he could afford a proper shop. He raised 4 children after his wife died of cancer when they were young, sent them all to college, and has no patience for laziness or excuses. Samuel and Marlon have been bickering for decades because Samuel believes Marlon is a useless mooch who has never accepted responsibility for anything in his life. Every family meeting concludes with Samuel calling Marlon out for being unemployed, broke, or making excuses for his most recent failure. Cassian, it's Samuel. I just got off the phone with Carol, who's having some kind of breakdown about you evicting Marlon and Celeste. Want to tell me what's really going on here? I described everything. Samuel listened without interrupting, which was unusual for him. A long pause. So you're telling me you've been Marlon's landlord for 4 years, and he doesn't even know it? That's right. Samuel began chuckling, really laughing. Jesus Christ, Cassian. That lazy piece of high has been complaining about being controlled by his own son, who's been letting him live rent-free. This is the funniest thing I've heard all year, so you don't think I'm being too harsh? Too harsh. Kid, you should have kicked them out years ago. Has been a deadbeat his entire adult life. And Celeste enables everything. Blaze has always been a smart-ass punk. Samuel's support felt amazing. After hours of angry calls from other family who believed Celeste's victim story. Cassian, let me tell you something. I've been trying to get Marlon to act like a responsible adult for 20 years. You buying his house and letting him live there for free was the best thing that could have happened to him. And he threw it away because he's too stupid and entitled to appreciate it. Samuel told me stories about Marlon's failures throughout the years. He'd quit his jobs, tried to start enterprises with other people's money, and was constantly borrowing and never repaying. He'd been watching Marlon fail in life for decades, making excuses and blaming everyone else. 3 days later, Anastasia called to provide an update. Cassian, they hired a lawyer, and they're contesting the eviction. They're claiming adverse possession and alleging fraud. Are you serious? Dead serious. Their lawyer is Martin Goldberg. He's what we call a bottom feeder. He'll take any case if the money's right. He's filing a motion claiming they've been living there openly for 15 years and should have ownership rights. With the court hearing on January 25th was planned for 10 a.m. I arrived in my nicest suit, accompanied by Anastasia and a folder with all of the necessary documentation, property deeds, tax records, purchase agreements, maintenance invoices, bank statements to prove that I was the rightful owner. They showed up with Martin. Blay was dressed in his lone dress shirt and acted as if he was about to reveal some major conspiracy. Judge Martinez appeared angry from the outset. She had plainly encountered this type of situation before. Crazy renters who believed they could take property through legal means. Mr. Goldberg, your clients are claiming adverse possession of property they don't own. Your Honor, my clients have been residing in this property for 15 years and have made substantial improvements. Do they have documentation of these improvements? Goldberg shuffled his papers anxiously. Well, Your Honor, they have receipts for some materials. Mr. Morrison, do you have the property deed? Anastasia stepped up with clean professionalism. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Cassian Morrison has been the sole owner since 2019, when he purchased the property to prevent foreclosure. And the defendants knew about this purchase. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Morrison purchased the property to help his family avoid foreclosure, but retained sole ownership. Anastasia presented our evidence methodically. The purchase paperwork showed that I paid $180,000 in cash. Deed transfers shows my name is sole owner. 4 years of property tax payments under my name. Insurance policies under my name. Maintenance receipts totaling more than $30,000 for repairs and enhancements. Everything is documented. Everything is lawful. When it came Goldberg's time, he had almost nothing. There was no documentation or evidence. Only accusations that my family deserved the house since they had lived there for longer. He attempted to argue that I had cheated them, but he had no evidence of fraud. The judge was harsh in her dismissal. Mr. Goldberg, adverse possession requires specific legal criteria that your clients clearly don't meet. They don't have continuous possession. They don't have hostile possession, and they don't have open and notorious possession. Mr. Morrison is the legal owner, has been paying all expenses and wants possession of his property. Your motion is denied. Defendants have 30 days to vacate. Blaze jumped up like an idiot. This is BS. You can't just steal our house. Bailiff, Remove that man if he speaks again without permission." As we walked out, Blaze was yelling in the hallway about corrupt judges and family treachery, and courtroom guards threatened to arrest him for disturbing the peace. That evening, Uncle Samuel called, his voice filled with satisfaction. "Cassian, I heard about the court hearing from Carol. She's all worked up about Marlon and Celeste losing, but I told her exactly what I think about the situation." "What did you tell her?" "I told her that Marlon has been a lazy mooch his entire life, that you saved their asses from foreclosure and let them live rent-free for 4 years, and that they brought this on themselves by treating you like garbage. I also told her that anyone taking Marlon's side in this is an idiot. After being destroyed in court, they had no choice but to confront reality. Their lawyer, Goldberg, effectively advised them they didn't have a case and that they tried to negotiate with me rather than face eviction and homelessness. The defeat in court had been complete and public. There was no uncertainty regarding who owned the house, and their legal rights were clear. They were squatters legally, and everyone knew it. Celeste called on February 1st, her voice quivering with urgency. "Cassian, honey, we've been looking everywhere. Everything decent is $200 or more, and we need the first month, last month, and security deposit. We don't have that kind of money." I put the call on speaker so Dorian could hear. He came over to assist me, sought some paperwork, and immediately started grinning. Zeppo was sitting on the couch between us, and I think he was listening intently. That sounds like a personal problem. "Celeste, please, can we rent from you? We'll pay you fairly. We just need a chance to prove we can be good tenants." The irony was stunning. After 4 years of living rent-free, locking me out on New Year's Eve, and attempting to steal my house in court, she was suddenly pleading to be my tenant. Dorian was making exaggerated, jerking off motions behind me, hoping to make me laugh. Zeppo glanced back and forth between us as if he was enjoying the show. $1,000 a month. First month due, February 10th. Month-to-month lease, which means I can terminate with 30 days notice if you screw up even once. $1,000. Cassian, that's so much money. Couldn't we start at maybe $700 and work up to it? Celeste, comparable houses in your neighborhood rent for $1,200 to $1,400. I'm giving you a discount. Take it or leave it. Marlon answered the phone with his typical entitlement. "Son, we appreciate this. The court thing got out of hand, but we're family. We can make this work." "This isn't family anymore, Marlon. This is business. You're my tenants now. Act like it." Blaze tried to negotiate, as one would expect. "Bro, what if we did, like $800? I mean, we just spent money on that lawyer and court fees. You spent your money on a lawyer to try to steal my house. That's not my problem. It's $1,000, or you're out in 3 weeks." Dorian was shaking his head in disbelief as I hung up. "Cassian, I'll bet you $100 they won't make the first payment." Zeppo stretched and knocked a pen off the sofa table, which I took as his agreement with Dorian's assessment. Uncle Samuel contacted after learning about the leasing arrangement through the family rumor network. "Cassian, I heard you're giving them another chance with the rent option. You're more generous than I would be." "Think they'll actually pay?" Samuel laughed, a sound that contained no humor. "Kid, Marlon hasn't held a steady job in 4 years. Celeste works part-time by choice, and Blay makes maybe $200 a month playing with his computer. What do you think?" They signed a month-to-month rental agreement on February 8th at Anastasia's office. The entire process seemed awkward and tense. Blay was a real ass at the signing, making sarcastic remarks about every clause and behaving as if I was ridiculous. "So if we're late on rent, can you just kick us out? That seems harsh for the family. You're tenants. And yes, if you don't pay rent, you get evicted. That's how renting works, whatever, bro. This whole situation is screwed up, and you know it." Marlon signed the lease, grumbling about the monthly payment. Celeste kept inquiring about utilities and maintenance tasks. They were mentally evaluating whether they could genuinely afford the payments the entire time. Anastasia acted professionally while plainly enjoying the occasion. "Mr. Morrison, I'll keep the eviction paperwork ready. Based on my experience, you'll probably need it within 30 days. February 10th came and went. There is no rental payment. Exactly what Samuel and Dorian predicted. Celeste contacted on February 12th with usual explanations. Cassie and Honey were having a little cash flow issue. Marlon's disability application is still pending, and Blaze's client hasn't paid him yet. Can we get it to you by the 15th? Dorian was there when I called, eating pizza and watching the show. Zeppo was splayed across my lap, purring as if fascinated by the scenario. Playing over the phone. Speaker. Cash flow issue, Dorian said mockingly. That's fancy talk, for we spent our rent money on a lawyer to steal your house. Cassian, we're trying our best here. Can't you work with us? You agreed to pay $1,000 by February 10th. It's now February 12th. You're already in default. February 15th. Still no payment. This time Marlon called with his usual entitled attitude. Cassian, we need to talk about this rent situation. $1,000 is unrealistic given our current circumstances. Dorian nearly choked on his drink, laughing. Current circumstances? You mean being broke because you tried to steal his house? Marlon, you signed a lease agreeing to pay $1,000 monthly. If you can't afford it, you need to move out. Come on, Cassian, be reasonable. We're family. We can work something out. We're not family. You made that clear. You're tenants who aren't paying rent. After 20 days of excuses and broken promises, Anastasia filed the second eviction. Cassian, this is even easier than the first one. They signed a lease, they're in default, and they have no legal standing whatsoever. The March 1st court session was nasty. The judge was clearly upset to see the same defendants again, especially because they had wasted the court's time with their false adverse possession claim. Mr. Morrison, back again with the same family? Yes, Your Honor. They signed a rental lease, then failed to pay the first month's rent. Blay couldn't keep his mouth shut, which was ideal for our situation. Your Honor, this is retaliation. He's mad that we tried to fight for our rights. The judge appeared disgusted. Son, you attempted to take his house and failed. Now you're not paying the rent you pledged to pay. This is not retaliation. These are the consequences. The plaintiff has received a judgment. Defendants have 7 days to evacuate or face sheriff-assisted removal. 7 days instead of 30. The judge was clearly fed up with their boss and wanted them to leave quickly. But the real drama began. Following the eviction, Blaze's desperation escalated into outright harassment, and his carefully planned lies began to crumble spectacularly. 2 weeks after they were forced out, I was in my apartment when this large guy showed up at my door looking quite angry. He's built like a bouncer and covered in tattoos. Not someone you want angry at you. You Cassian Morrison. Yeah. Who's asking? Name's Marcus. I'm looking for your piece of once, Brother Blaze. He owes me money, and I heard he might be staying with you. Blaze doesn't live with me. We're not exactly on speaking terms. Marcus was perplexed and increasingly irritated. That's weird, man. When Blaze borrowed $5,000 from me last month, he said he lived in this nice house with his family and had steady design work. Showed me pictures of the house and everything. My blood ran cold. He borrowed $5,000 from you. Yeah. Said he needed it for high-end design equipment and software licenses for his business. Showed me his portfolio. Talked about all these big corporate clients he was landing. Said he'd pay me back in 30 days. No problem. Blaze had been using my house as security for loans, claiming he lived there with his prosperous family, and ran a booming design business. Marcus had been shown images of my property, specifically my garage and driveway. He'd been claiming credit for my accomplishment in order to defraud people. Kid seemed legit. Marcus continued. Professional portfolio, nice family home. Talked a good game about his business growth. But now I find out he's homeless and his design business is BS. What happens if he doesn't pay you back? Marcus cracked his knuckles with a clear determination. Well, I'm not the type to just write off $5,000. I've got his signed promissory note copies of his ID, his social security number, everything. If he doesn't pay up, I'm taking him to court and filing criminal charges for fraud. After Marcus departed, Dorian laughed his ass off. Dude, your brother borrowed money by pretending he still lived in your house and had a successful business. That's next-level scamming. 2 days later, Blaze called me from an unknown number, sounding terrified and desperate. Cassian, I need your help. There's this guy Marcus, looking for me, and he's serious about getting his money back. Yeah, he came by my place. You borrowed $5,000 by lying about living in my house. Look, I was desperate, okay? I needed money for equipment, and I thought I could pay him back once I got some big clients. Blay, you've made like $200 total in the past 6 months. What made you think you could pay back $5,000? I don't know. I thought something would work out. But now he's threatening to sue me and file criminal charges. That's fraud. Blaze, you used false information to get money you knew you couldn't pay back. Can you help me out just this once? I'll pay you back, I swear. You borrowed money by claiming you lived in my house and had a successful business. That's your problem, not mine. I called Uncle Samuel and gave him the update. Samuel was quiet for a time before bursting into genuine laughter. That little oddball. He's been telling people he's a great entrepreneur while living rent-free and earning $200 a month. This is perfect. Blaze just committed fraud. Real fraud with criminal implications. This isn't a family drama anymore. This is an actual crime. That boy is about to see what genuine consequences look like. 2 months later, Blaze was arrested. It seems that Marcus was not his only victim. Blay had borrowed money from at least 3 different people. The total was more than $12,000 in bogus loans, all secured by using my home as proof of his stability and success. He had been conducting a methodical deception, photographing my property and presenting it as proof of his financial success and family support. Blay ultimately pleaded guilty to 7 counts of fraud and theft by deception. He received 2 years of probation, restitution, and orders for all of the money he had taken, and a criminal record that would follow him forever. Blaze used family property to commit his deception, so the judge was especially punitive. Meanwhile, Marlon was jailed for trespassing after breaking into his brother's house and being kicked out. He'd been staying with Uncle Paul until they became weary of his attitude and kicked him out rather than finding suitable housing. He attempted to break into Paul's home to reclaim his stuff, but was apprehended by neighbors. Celeste ended up in a women's shelter after severing ties with every relative who attempted to assist her. It turns out that repeatedly talking about your ungrateful son and begging for money gets old quickly among family members. Dorian moved into my house as the ideal tenant, paying $100 and $200 per month and taking greater care of the property than my family ever did. He sought permission before making any improvements, paid his rent on time every month, and increased the property's worth through maintenance and additions. The nicest thing was that Uncle Samuel became the extended family's voice of reason. He confronts everyone who attempts to defend Marlon or Celeste. Armed with evidence and years of seeing Marlon fail in life, Cassian's the only one in this family with any sense. Samuel remarked to and Carol during the previous family meeting, Marlon's a deadbeat. Celeste's an enabler. Blaze is a criminal, and Cassian's the only one who worked hard and made something of himself. Sarah and I are now engaged, and we're arranging a small wedding with Dorian as my best man. You know what the best part is? Samuel asked during our engagement party. You didn't just get revenge on Marlon. You showed everyone what real success looks like. You own property. You've got a good job. You're marrying a great woman, and you're surrounded by people who actually give a damn about you. They had ample opportunities to treat me with basic respect while living in my home for free. Instead, they opted for entitlement, lies, and court warfare. Now they're dispersed around the state, facing criminal charges and dealing with the consequences of their own acts. While I am prospering, some bridges should be burnt.